All right, another day, another Saturday in another look out to preview the second week. Obviously, it was a great first week, but hey, I mean, it is what it is. You deal with what you deal with. A lot of surprises, a lot of disappointments. I have to mention that at the end of the show, but obviously, we are moved on to a very critical week for several teams early in the year because obviously the playoff rate when you're 0 and 2 goes down significantly. And in this decade, if you're 0 and 2, you could be up you be it's going to be a high road to get back into the contentions where you're at. So obviously we will preview these games. We do not actually have we do have uh, two known unanimous picks, and that is Baltimore over Cleveland and Cincinnati over Jacksonville. But there's a lot of bad games, and what we have done on our previous shows in the past, we call this the shotgun no huddle, where we go through a lot of these bad games quickly before we get to the bigger matchups. So we will not hesitate here. We will we will go into the first matchup here. This would be a unanimous pick if they were healthy, but the 49ers are obviously not. They just lost Brock Purdy for a month with injury. So Mac Jones, who they should have drafted in 2021, is now his backup. And man, Brock Purdy's had a different backup every year in his career. But obviously he's going to, Mac Jones will lead the 49ers down to the Superdome to play the Saints, who, even though we know they're not a really good team, they did play decent enough to almost win last week. So go right to it.
All right, yeah. I mean, I don't know that you can really say that's who they should have drafted is Mac Jones. There's a reason why he's not started in the league, as a regular starter anymore. But you know, either way, yeah, this isn't a good game. It wasn't a good game before. It's even worse, but even so, Niners win this one easy. If you want to score, I don't know. I'll say 28-10.
I'm going to surprise you. I think the Saints win this game. As much as I know they're not very good, like I said, the 49ers are just a team that's just fragile right now. They didn't play great last week. Purdy didn't play good at all. He threw two interceptions and then he got injured. And then obviously McCaffrey is not 100%, nor will he probably ever be again. And then the receivers are what they are. They got injuries there. So they're a banged up team right now. And maybe the Saints take advantage of it. Maybe they do. So I'm gonna go with the Saints here in a surprise upset, 21-20.
All right, go for it, man.
All right. So Carolina is on the road this week again. They're in Arizona facing the Cardinals. So I mean, nothing to expect out of these two this year. So go right to it.
Yeah, I got nothing on this game. This is trash. Arizona, yes, it's final score 24-23.
Yeah, I mean Carolina had it rough last week. They had to deal with bad weather and just terrible football all around. And then you look at Arizona. I mean, barely surviving, and then you know they'll be the most unimpressive 2-0 team going into week three. So I got Arizona winning, and the final score 26-24.
Okay.
All right, the Rams have a big matchup next week here in Philly. It's a 1 o'clock game. This is also a 1 o'clock game. I think this is a 1 o'clock game. Is it? I don't know, but if it's not, then shame on them. But they have a big matchup against Tennessee that looked pretty decent last week in Denver. Not a great game, but they hanged in there and nearly pulled it off. Cam Ward makes his first ever home start as a pro, so go right to this matchup.
This is another one I'm not going to spend any time even talking about. You know, Tennessee might maybe Cam Ward. He might become a good quarterback in this league, but Tennessee's not good right now, and Rams are their playoff team. So I'm not going to go into detail on this one. Rams win, 31-16.
Yeah, this should be interesting to a degree. I mean, obviously the Rams played a defensive battle in Houston against Houston last week. Now they're playing Tennessee. I mean, obviously we'll see what happens, but I think with Cam Ward, his leadership is obviously very well documented, but he just has to have the skill to back up the leadership, and it's not there at the moment. They didn't play great last week in a way, but I'm gonna go with with the Rams winning 20-10. And our last matchup, and like I said, I don't know how you feel about it, but it's a interesting one in the AFC East between two teams that aren't really expected. Miami, the biggest disappointment last week, and New England, who I predict will be one of the funner bad teams this year under Mike Vrabel. So this is our last one in this shotgun no huddle. Go into it.
Uh, Patriots final score 2017.
Yeah, I got New England winning as well. I don't trust Miami. Miami's is garbage. You know, everything about that city seems garbage. So, oops. But anyway, give me New England 22-16.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the shotgun no huddle. We'll be doing that a lot during the season to try to save time and get through the bad matchups that we don't really care about. I don't know if you really care about this matchup either, but we're going to start the real discussion here with a reunion game or a revenge game, depends on who you ask. For Ben Johnson, he was Detroit's offensive coordinator the last couple of years and led them to one of the top offenses in the league. Should have been a Super Bowl appearance in 2024. But unfortunately, his game and his success led him to getting a head coaching job, and now he's with the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams. He returns to Detroit for the first time since leaving, and he's helping out Caleb Williams, who, let's just say, the jury's still out on him. I know how you feel about Caleb, but obviously, the Bears have work to do. This is a very critical matchup for Detroit. One of those contenders that do not want to start. They got beat around in Green Bay last week. They don't want to start 0-2. Obviously, it's a tough climb if they do. Then again, if they do lose this game, it will match their whole total loss total from the 2024 season, which is really hard to believe. So, an interesting matchup between two teams that's desperate for a victory. Does Ben Johnson get the better of his Detroit brethrens? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, you might be done with the rapid fire games, but there's a few other games on this schedule this week that I'm not spending any time talking about. But this one I actually talk about for a second. Um, yeah, like you said, Ben Johnson going up against his former team. Caleb Williams had a bad game last week. He's going to need to bounce back, or else there's going to start to become well. There's already a lot of people already are questioning him, but even more are going to question him if he has another bad game. Um, Chicago, man, they need to get a victory here, you know. But so does Detroit. I mean, they started off 0-1. They had a terrible game last week against Green Bay. They got crushed. Um, and they got Super Bowl aspirations. The defense didn't play well. He had 0 sacks last week. The offense didn't play well. Now Detroit hasn't lost two straight since they started 1-6 in 2022. Since then, they haven't lost 2 straight games. So we'll see what happens. But I think they'll get some. I think their defense will play well. I think Caleb's like I already said. Caleb's not a good quarterback. The team isn't disciplined like you would expect from a Ben Johnson type team. They had 12 penalties last week for 127 yards. Yeah, everything to me seems like this is going to be a Detroit bounce back week. So I'm going Detroit here. Final score. I'm going to say 34-20.
Like I said, I mean, obviously, I know how you feel about Caleb. I don't like him either. I think he is overrated. And that Monday night game last week was kind of a microcosm of why it's a risk what Ben Johnson's doing. I mean, obviously, Ben Johnson had a great run in Detroit the last several years. He put this team at number one total offense over that span. I mean, it is surprising. We're talking about the Detroit Lions, and they haven't lost 2 straight games in nearly 3 years. This is Detroit. They're used to losing 20 games in a row not too long ago. I mean, that's pretty odd. That's odd. When you're talking about the Detroit Lions and a potential 2 game losing streak, boy have times changed. But still, it is weird. It is weird. But obviously, you had to tell you how much this team has built. They built that team into what they did. Under Dan Campbell, they've obviously done a hell of a job. But like you said, and like we've all said, they have 2 new coordinators. Well, what's the offensive coordinator in Detroit now?
Johnny Morton.
Johnny Morton. Where did he come? Was he in house or did he come from another team?
I forget what I think he was in house, but he wasn't like I don't know. I forget what his role was with the team.
Yeah, because let's be honest, that offense did not look good at all. I mean, I don't know if you watched the Washington play Green Bay, but at least Washington tried. But Green Bay is really a great defense. But Detroit really did nothing in that matchup last week against the Packers. And like I said, Jared Goff, it's almost insulting that people would pit him up. Of all the people you would have put above Jalen Hurts, you're going to put Jared Goff ahead of him, really? He did nothing last week. And he's basically is a nothing if he doesn't have the right talent around him. That was the case when he was in LA and obviously here in Detroit. And let's be honest, I mean, this is not going to be a fun matchup if they don't get going. And the Bears, I mean, I really don't know. Both these teams are going to play scared early, but Detroit is the better team. I agree with you. I just think that when you look at Ben Johnson and what he wants out of this Bears team, I just don't see it right now. It may happen later in the year, but like I said, they have to ride that coattail of Caleb Williams until this guy becomes something, if he becomes of anything. But it's not going to work this weekend. I got Detroit bouncing back as well, and the final score 31-17.
Okay.
All right. I know this was one of your games you wanted me to put in rapid fire, but hey, the Jets did play well last week. Give them not flowers, but give them a credit. They did play the Steelers really tough. They should have won that game. They didn't. They're at home again against a Bills team. We know the Bills aren't really fragile. That was obviously one of the greatest regular season games we've ever watched between the Bills and the Ravens. Obviously, we all know the end result, but that just tells you how ridiculous it was. But obviously, now we're going to know where the Jets. Well, we know the Jets aren't on the same level as the Bills, but the game is at MetLife. It's not at Rich. So, like I said, I just think that why I didn't put this on my rapid fire list is pretty much I expect the Jets to at least show up for a little while and see what Aaron Glenn has for Josh Allen, what his defense may have for him. but we'll see what happens. Obviously, the Bills, they let's just give them a break. They knew that was one of their toughest matchups, maybe the toughest matchup they're going to have all year. Now we're going to know how dangerous this Bills team really is because they survived the Ravens, or at least made that great comeback. All right, I know you won't take long with this matchup, but go right into it.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, okay, the Jets played pretty well well, I wouldn't say well, but they played tough last week against the Steelers and almost won. But it doesn't mean they're a good team. The Steelers aren't that great a team, to be honest with you. Um, but the Bills are gonna blow them out. Justin Fields is a bum. We all know it. He had a good game. He'll come back down to earth this week. Um, Bills win. Final score 36-16.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I know we already discussed why, but it's just the fact is that you know what I saw from the Jets last week is what I hope I could see from them throughout the year with Justin Fields and with Aaron Glenn calling the shots. And like I said, I mean that that was a fun game last week. I think when you look at the two best games of Week 1, the Jets game against the Steelers and obviously the Ravens and the Bills were the two best games. But obviously, like you said, the Bills now are out. The hardest game is behind them now, and now they're going to play probably the softest schedule of any contender, and they're just going to roll on the Jets, especially in the second half. So, sadly, the Bills will win big, and the final score 40-20.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Steelers, we're going to go there next. We're going to go to Pittsburgh next. Aaron Rodgers makes his home debut, his last debut for a home game. We'll see how the Steeler fans accept him. I mean, I'm sure they'll accept him with open arms. Obviously, the Seahawks also starting anew at quarterback, another veteran name that the Jets know very well, like Aaron, Sam Darnold. And like I said, both these teams, it's going to be interesting to see. Steelers, barely survived the Jets last week, or at least made that great comeback because the Jets were the better team for most of that game. Obviously, we'll see what they can do against Seattle, who's, like I said, trying to figure out, okay, if we couldn't beat the 49ers, what are we? What are the Seahawks? They'll know a lot after this matchup. Go ahead.
I'm not going to waste time on this one either. Trash. Sam Darnold's trash. Aaron Rodgers played well overall. Seattle does have a pretty solid defense there. But yeah, I'm going to say I don't see Seattle doing much on offense, and I don't think Rodgers is going to have a huge game like he had last week, but he'll do enough. So I'll say Pittsburgh with a final score of 26-20.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this should be an interesting matchup. I mean, like I said, there's a lot on the line for both of these teams. Sam Darnold, you know, obviously he had a great, he didn't have the best game last week. He kind of realizes he's not Minnesota anymore, and Seattle's just not built the same way. But obviously, playing the Steelers, it should be interesting to see how they do and how Aaron Rodgers does at home this year. I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns last week. That was pretty impressive. But the end game is you gotta get to the playoffs, and the end game is you gotta have success. And does this matchup mean anything long term? I don't know. Not really to you or I, but we'll see what happens here. I'll give Seattle a threat, but I'm going to go with the Seahawks too. Think they'll win this game. Be a battle, be a war. Final score 26-24.
Okay.
All right. Like I said, I can tell you're not in love with this schedule at all this week. The matchups. There's not many great games, at least on paper. So we're gonna go to Johnny B's Colts, who had the most impressive win of Week 1 last week, blowing out Miami. But they have a tough matchup this time. It's not going to be a team that's going to bow down to them like Miami did. Denver comes to town this week, and we both agree that they're better. They're a better team. They were a playoff team, obviously, last year. Can Danny Dimes with a much tougher defense? Can Danny Dimes redo what he did last week, or will he be like he's been for most of his career? Danny fumbles, Danny intercepts, Danny gets benched down the road. Critical matchup for the Colts. They might have impressed a lot. They might have turned some heads week 1, but then again, like I said, the Dolphins might have quit. Now you must prove that you could do the same to the Broncos and acquit them. Go ahead.
All right. Well, yeah, you're Johnny B, his Colts. Yeah, they had a good game last week against a team that has completely given up in week but before week 1 even started, has given up on the season, it looks like. So good for them. We talked on Wednesday and you had Johnny on here to try to, I don't even know, try to tell us how great the Colts were, and the fool, even after they had that big game, that fool couldn't even get his audio working. So, couldn't even hear from what stupidity he was going to be saying about Super Bowls and stuff. So,
Yeah.
Beyond that, they're coming back down to earth this week. Daniel Jones is a bum. We all know he's a bum. We've seen him for what, 5 years in the league, something like that. I don't even know how long he's been, but he's been trash. He had like one season where they made the playoffs and he was okay, but not great, and they barely made it. And everyone was and then he got that big extension. That's The Giants were so stupid. They signed him to a $40 million a year extension. And then he showed what he's got. Trash. He's no better on the Colts. He is what he is. Meanwhile, they're going up against a tough team. Denver's tough, man. They got a top defense. They got a good offense. They got an actual quality quarterback back there. They got a head coach that knows how to coach an offense. Not a fraud like, well, never mind. I shouldn't even say that. Steichen's not bad. It's just, I think I don't think he's some excellent offensive mind either. You know what I mean? Um, so nonetheless, everything points to the Broncos here. The Colts this is going to be a tough one for them, man. Since Johnny B wanted to come on and talk about his Colts last week, once they get blown out this week, you're going to have him on to listen to him cry too. Maybe he'll actually fix his audio for that. So we'll go with Denver here. Final score. I'm going to say 37-18.
Yeah, that was hilarious. The fact that he couldn't even speak, and we had him obviously on the preview show, and he could speak well. But yeah, that was kind of weird. But then again, it's Johnny B. What is normal about him? And then the fact is, it's like you said, it's funny. Daniel Jones technically played a role in the Eagles winning the Super Bowl last year, because if they paid Saquon instead of Tim for their 2022 playoff success, their 2022 season success in New York, we never get Saquon, and the Eagles may have not been on that level. So technically, Daniel Jones is reason why the Eagles are the world champs from a technical standpoint. But when you really look at it, I mean, yeah, they got lucky last week. They played a Dolphins team who I already said on my preview show was going to be garbage anyway, and they played like it. And now they're pointing fingers like I thought. And this is something, Matt, you don't like. Players only meeting after week 1. That's a cry for help, and you know that. That's a cry for help if you're having a players only meeting after the first fucking week. But when you really look at this though, the Colts were impressive. Of course, they scored in every possession. That just tells you how bad Miami was. But yeah, it's going to be tougher for the Colts this week. Denver is a much tougher team, better defense by far. Uh, a quarterback that won't make stupid mistakes. Even though Bo Nix did not play great last week, he didn't play great at all last week. But they got Cortland Sutton. They got guys that can do the deal. I think it's going to be tougher for the Colts to get what they want. I'm sure we'll hear from Johnny B throughout the entire game. That's going to be going on with the Eagles game. It's a 4 o'clock start, a late start for them. So, but they aren't on the doubleheader. That's a CBS game. So, um, I'm going to go with the Broncos. Maybe not in a blowout like you have it, but I think they're going to win this game. And I think the Colts will play well, but I think Denver's going to win though. And the final score 33-27.
Okay.
All right. Now the Monday night game again is a doubleheader. It's a doubleheader. It's not a it's not a what I call it. I don't even remember what I called it. It's not a subjective doubleheader where one game starts an hour before the next game. I think this is a straight doubleheader where there'll be 4 teams play, 2 teams will play, and then after that they'll go to the next matchup. So we have a late. So we're gonna go to the late Monday night matchup first. We're gonna continue on around the league there, but obviously the Chargers coming off probably a very impressive win that everybody forgotten about. Their dominant win against the Chiefs, drawing first blood in what could be the end of the dynasty for Big Red and the Rocket. And then obviously the Raiders also coming off of a victory against New England last week. Gino played well, and obviously Pete Carroll, who looks like he's still in his 50s, even though he's now in his 70s. They did a really really decent job there. So I mean, obviously we all know you how much you're on board with the Chargers this year. This is a very critical matchup for the Raiders. Where do they stand? This is obviously an interesting matchup. So go to it.
Okay. So, yeah, this one's a weird one for me. On paper, the Chargers should come in and blow them out, but uh, I think this could be a letdown week for them, kind of a trap game. Because when you look at it, like you said, they just had that big victory against the Chiefs last week, and next week they play Denver. You know, and this is sort of the the garbage game in between two big ones. Um, Now I will say Harbaugh typically has his teams ready and prepared, so I don't you wouldn't think that they'll be caught looking ahead, but you never know, man. It could happen. And you look at last week, Justin Herbert had a huge game. They came out throwing the ball. With Greg Roman and Harbaugh, they typically like to run the ball a lot, but they were letting Herbert sling the ball over the field last week, and they really took it to the Chiefs. I think they'll probably run a little bit more this week, but nonetheless, they might go to more of a pass heavy offense if Herbert keeps it up. And one key player for last week and for this team in general for the season is Joe Alt, moving over to left tackle after the injury to Rashawn Slater, and he dominated last week. Didn't allow zero quarterback pressure at 41 pass plays. Um, Keeps that up. That's going to be big for Herbert. The Raiders, I mean, come on. They got to win against a bad Patriots team, but it wasn't pretty. Uh, they don't have a whole lot on that team. Brock Bowers is the only thing. He's a little banged up. I expect him to play. He had 5 receptions, 103 yards last week. So, picked up right where he left off last year. So I expect him to have a good game, but that's really all they got. Well, they do have Genty. I shouldn't say that's all they got, but that's it. That's it. They don't have a good D. They don't have a quarterback. They really don't have receivers for the most part.
They got Jacoby though. Jacoby Myers, the law firm.
I mean, he's all right, but it's not, dude. If that's your number one receiver, that's pretty bad. Let's be real. Okay. Um, but I don't know, man. Something about this game. I'm gonna pick the upset here. I just think it's gonna be one of those weird ones where it's just a letdown game for the Chargers. They get caught. It's just the scheduling, man. They're gonna have. I think they're just gonna get caught looking ahead. So, um, I'm gonna actually give it to the Raiders here with a major upset, and I'll say the final score will be 23-21.
Hmm. Hmm. You know, I'll give you a lot. I'll give Jim Harbaugh a lot of credit. Last year, he envisioned Justin Herbert as a future Hall of Famer, knowing what he already accomplished in this league as one of the better quarterbacks, talent wise. You know what he did with him last year? He turned him into a game manager. 23 touchdowns. That's all he could throw. And we know he's capable of throwing 40. I mean, that's pretty low. And let's be honest. I think when Justin wanted to have a hell wants to do well in the playoffs, they had the wrong setup and he got picked off 4 times. More than any time in the regular season combined. This so on Friday, last Friday, he throws for 3 touchdowns, and he lets him be who he is. See, that's the thing about hardball. When you have an elite quarterback or a guy capable of being an elite quarterback, you have to let him. You have to let him hunt. And it's one thing to have a quarterback that doesn't have elite talent, like a Brock Purdy, for example, or Bo Nix, maybe. Like if he had those quarterbacks, then it's understandable. You just let them hold on and play the Alex Smith role. But you can't do that with someone like Justin Herbert. That guy can play, and we know it. So I'll give him a lot of credit last week. And let's be honest, the Chiefs are in trouble, and we'll get to them here obviously soon. But when you look at obviously what's going on with the Raiders, I mean, yeah, it wasn't a great matchup. They played the Patriots, no surprise. But still, when you look at when you look at this Raiders team, and you look at someone like like Pete Carroll, who knows how to play in this league. He knows how to coach. He's had a great run. He's underrated more than he's ever going to be overrated, just because he has a Super Bowl ring and he has taken less teams to the playoffs in the past. I think this Raiders team's going to be all right. Now, this is a tough matchup for the Raiders, even though this is at home and this is their home opener. So I just think that this is going to be a nip and tuck battle, and I think that when you look at Geno Smith, can you trust him in the clutch? And I say no. He can't be trusted in a clutch situation. He has to be. They have to basically beat the pants off of them, or the defense had to beat the pants off of them. And I don't think the Raiders lines are as good as the Chargers lines. And then bringing up Caleb Williams again, I don't need to bring him up anymore. I know Keenan Allen was happy last week because he does not he did not like being in Chicago last year and the way that offense was done and prepared. And then again, you saw how they fell off after that Washington game. So, like I said, him being back there helps as well. I think the Chargers are going to win this game. I think it's going to be a battle. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a battle. But I think like a walk-off field goal situation, I'm going to go with the Chargers here. So give me the Chargers in the final score, 20-17. I can't believe you're doubting your pick. Yeah, you there?
Hey, I don't know if it's you or me, but something you breaking up on for me at least.
I hear you now. Sorry about this. I hope you heard that. I'm sorry. All right. All right, we're gonna go to a matchup that again you're gonna throw up in your bag. It's the NFC East battle. It happens every year. You know it. Cowboys and Giants. And the story is I got it wrong. It Dallas is hosting the Giants. Why do I have the Dallas in New York? They're not in New York. Giants are at Jerry World. Anyway, sorry about that too. But obviously, this is a critical matchup for the G men. Jackson Dart rumors are going around throughout New York sports talk radio, even though I don't listen to it. But I know the pressure's on Russell Wilson. He did not have a great debut in Big Blue, in a career he's just trying to just salvage. Dallas did okay last week against the Eagles, but in the second half, the Eagles' defense dominated them, and CeeDee Lamb had 3 drops. Like I said, is this a game that the Giants have any chance in, or does Dallas's struggles at home last year creep up last year like it did? Let's see what happens. Go ahead to it. All right,
All right, man. Well, I can barely hear you. It's like, listen back. Can you hear me at all?
I hear you. I hear you, but you
Are
might
you
be
hearing
cutting
what
out
I'm
too.
everything, or is that am I breaking up on you?
Sometimes you break up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's you or me.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know if this is you or me, but somebody's messed up here.
all right. Well, I can hear you here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm not even gonna waste any time on this game anyway. Cowboys beat the Giants. Final score will be I don't know, man. 29-13.
Yeah, I don't see where the Giants are very competitive at all. Maybe Malik Neighbors has a 6 touchdown pass, but that's about as much offense as they're going to show. They don't really run the ball. Neither of them are going to run the ball very well. So there's going to be a lot of throwing, at least a combined 60 passes in this game. I mean, Dak, what can we say about him? He's Dak. He'll throw. He'll have some good games. He'll even throw some turnovers because he's Dak. Whatever. CD will have 1 drop, but at least 1 touchdown. So I'll go with the Cowboys as much as I don't want to. And the final score 29-15. I don't know. All
Okay.
right. All right, we're gonna go to the other Monday night matchup. We only got 2 more to go before the Eagles Chiefs big matchup. Obviously, these are two teams, 2 division lifer winners the last several years. Uh, Houston did not impress last week in LA in a defensive battle. They lost at the end. Now they host Tampa. Obviously, Tampa won a big battle against the Falcons on the road. They're on the road again this week. This time in Houston on a Monday night. This is the Buck Aikman game. I don't know who's going to do the. I don't know who's doing the Chiefs Raiders game there since this is a Monday night doubleheader, but this is the first matchup, and we'll see what happens here. Buck's trying to start 2-0. Why the Texans do not want to lose any more ground to Johnny B's codes. Go ahead.
All right. Well, this is one of my picks from Wednesday. It's also my lock of the week. Um, Tampa's getting 2.5. Houston, like you said, they won last week. It was like a defensive battle. That offense didn't look very good. They got some major problems with that offense, man. Even though Stroud's a talented player, he was disappointing last year, and I don't see things working out for him very well this year. got nothing, no running game. I mean, Nick Chubb's their number one running back at this point. That tells you all you need to know. Um, they got the horrible offensive line. They might have the worst offensive line in the league, you know, and they're going up against the Tampa team that likes to bring the heat. Todd Bowles likes to go get after the quarterback. Um, Now these two teams now I shouldn't say these two. Well, they have, but Stroud has played the Bucks once before back in his rookie year, and he had an all-time game in that one. They won 39-37, and Stroud had threw a career high 5 touchdown passes and threw for a rookie record 470 yards. So he did solve the Todd Bowles puzzle once before, but I don't think it's going to happen this time, man. I think this is going to be a rough one for him. And Tampa, we saw last week, Emeka Egbuka, all the hype that he's been getting all off season and in training camp and the preseason carried over to the regular season, man. 2 touchdown receptions. He looked really good. Mike Evans, Bucky Irving, they got the whole group back there for Baker. So they're not gonna put up a ton of points against Houston because Houston does have a really good defense, but if they break 20, they win this game, and they're going to break 20. So I'm going to go Tampa 24. I'll say 24-16.
I mean, obviously, it is amazing how much things have changed in Houston from an offensive standpoint. I mean, C.J. Stroud, they put that rocket on the back of him, and it looked like he was going to be shipped off to success. But unfortunately, the offense now looks what it is. Not that I don't think he's changed as a quarterback. I just think he doesn't have a lot of talent around him, and that's on Houston. That's on the general manager. You want to win, you gotta give him some help. He's your franchise guy. You don't want to make him look like a fool out here. I mean, Tampa, you gotta give a lot of credit. Baker Mayfield. We all thought he was a bum. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not a bum because he's obviously fit right in there, and he's having a hell of a run here in Tampa the last couple of years. So, it's working for him. Tells you how much we doubted him. But this is going to be an interesting matchup. I think with Houston, like I said, their defense is good enough to be in every game, and I think they'll give Baker some trouble. I think we look at DeMeco Ryans, and here's the deal: we got 2 head coaches that are defensive minds, DeMeco Ryans and Todd Bowles. I mean, obviously, this is going to be an interesting back in Fort Bow. I think this is going to be another defensive struggle here, and I'm going to go with the Houston to win this matchup. It is in Houston, so give me the Texans here, and the final score 20-17.
Yeah. Well,
Because
the way I would put it
go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, the way I would put it with Houston, I wouldn't say that they don't have a lot of talent around Stroud. It's just a bad build. I mean, they got a ton of talent at wide receiver, which is the same sort of build that they put together last year, and they doubled down this year. They had a ton of talent at receiver last year. They did bring in Mixon at least, but they had a bad offensive line this year. Last year, they let the line get even worse without bringing in any more talent. They let Stephon Diggs leave, which is fine, but they brought in Christian Kirk, and then they doubled down. And they took 2 receivers in the second and third rounds in the draft, and they knew that Mixon had a pretty bad foot injury that might carry into the season. Who knows what it's gonna? He might not even play this year. So they knew they had no running game in a loaded running back class. They knew they had no offensive line, and they brought in 100 more receivers instead of fixing the issues that were the main issues last year. So it's just a bad build, and it's just a team that doesn't know how to build an offense properly.
Well, that's on the general manager then.
Yeah, general manager who
And whoever the scouts are.
Yeah, whoever's in charge of making these moves. I mean, it could be a combination. It could be general manager, offensive coordinator, head coach all getting together and agreeing. But whoever. So one person has to have final say.
Well, I don't know who the heck that would be in Houston. We know who would be up in Dallas, but we don't know who that is in Houston. We have no
Yeah.
idea. But anyway, all right, we're going to go to the Sunday night matchup. Uh, this is going to be my game of the week because I don't know about that Eagles Chiefs game in a way, but this is my game of the week here. Like I said, this is going to be very interesting. These two quarterbacks know each other very well. In the 2024 National Championship game, J.J. McCarthy beat Michael Penix. In the 2024 NFL Draft, Michael Penix was drafted above J.J. McCarthy. Now the rubber match on Sunday Night Football. Two young studs. J.J. McCarthy coming off an impressive come-from-behind win on the road, making his home debut. Michael Penix, who's been very competitive, but still the jury's out on him on how good he can really be. Two young stars leading their franchises to hopeful big time success in the future. Big matchup. Go ahead. Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. So, this one is interesting. Like you said, we got 2 first-round picks last year between Penix and McCarthy. Penix was taken 2 picks ahead of McCarthy. Coming in after that draft, the expectation was that Penix wouldn't start at all in his rookie year, and that McCarthy was going to step right in as a starter. But didn't come out exactly the opposite, but came out sort of opposite in that McCarthy got injured and didn't start a single game last year, and then Penix didn't start the season. But Kirk Cousins was so bad that by the end of the year, Penix was starting. And obviously that's carried over to this year. Penix we're full into the Penix era of the Falcons, and we're just starting the McCarthy era for the Vikings. Both of them looked solid. I wouldn't say solid. McCarthy didn't look good until the fourth quarter last week, and then he pulled off a big comeback. Penix, he was solid all game. He did try to lead them on a comeback, except their kicker missed a last-second field goal to tie the game.
And I ripped into him.
Yeah. But it was a tough matchup for Atlanta, really for both quarterbacks. I mean, Chicago does have a tough defense overall, and we know Tampa's defense is tough on young quarterbacks. And nonetheless, they came out. Neither of them they both look like they belong in this league overall. This one's going to be fun, interesting one to watch if you're into, young quarterbacks or just young, if you're into dynasty fantasy football, stuff like that. I have Penix on just about I have Penix on all 4 of my fantasy teams, my 2 dynasty teams, my 2 redraft teams. So I'm a big Penix guy, and I'm expecting a good game out of him this week. Drake London is cleared to play. Darnell Mooney's back. He missed last week with a shoulder injury. That's going to help them a lot. He's a very underrated receiver. Okay.
Yeah, he was good last year. He was very good last year.
Yeah, he was really good last year. He got banged up at the end of the year, but I forget what it was. He scored almost as I mentioned this in our fantasy show. He had, I think it was like 9 total fantasy points less than Drake London after week 13 of the season. I mean, he was good. Nonetheless, I think both quarterbacks will have solid performances. I'm going with my guy though. I'm going with Penix. I think he's gonna have a good one this week. He's the type of guy that could have a really bad game, but he could also throw for 5 touchdowns any week. So yeah, I'm going with Penix, and I'm going to say the final score will be 31-29.
You know what, Matt? I just thought about that score because I'm taking the same score, and I'm taking the Falcons on a late field goal. That kicker's going to get another opportunity to prove himself. And I know we don't talk about kickers on this show very often because sometimes there's no necessary for them. But that young Koo, whatever that guy, if he wants to keep his job and keep the Falcons relevant, he needs to have a decent enough time to get a good kick in. And obviously that depends on how the game goes. And I think this is going to be a back and forth game. Comebacks are going to be tough because you want to leave a comeback, but you want to win it. And you give a lot of credit to JJ McCarthy. He got pushed around last week, but after that pick six, it opened the door. I don't think he likes being pick six. Nobody likes being pick sixth. But obviously he came back and he surprised the Bears at the end. And that's what happens in close games. If you don't take anybody seriously, you get beat normally. And we'll see how this matchup goes. This should be a very interesting matchup. But I agree with the score, and I think that kicker has to get his ass, as I say, get his ass where it's at. So yeah, I agree with the score as well, 31-29 ATL. All right, we're going to go to the big one, America's Game of the Week. Our Eagles, the world champs, Super Bowl 59 rematch. 7 months
Yeah.
later, and let's be honest, the Chiefs.
Hey man, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. The Chiefs, if they were bad in the Super Bowl, their roster is even weaker now than it was then. They have no receivers and very little running game or whatever. Patrick Mahomes was running with no head on an attachment last in that game. How bad was the beatdown? The Eagles, they didn't even have a they didn't even cross Eagles territory at the third quarter. Yeah, like one first down through 3 quarters. That 22 points was irrelevant at the end. The Eagles destroyed them. But this game is in Arrowhead. It will be interesting to see what happens. The Eagles played a decent game, but they had a lot of controversy. The Jalen Carter thing, luckily that's behind them now, hopefully. The offense didn't play great at all, so we'll see if they can bounce back this week. Even though Jalen Hurts did play well for himself. But obviously, this is a critical matchup. Like I said, can Kansas City have any chance of a revenge? Or is the Eagles going to beat their ass again, like 7 months ago, for the big prize, even though this is only a regular season matchup? Go right ahead.
All right, yeah, man. I mean, this is a huge game for Kansas City this week, man. I hate saying that for week 2 of the season, but this is a huge game for them. This could be, if they get their asses kicked again this week, um, this could be their whole season imploding. Um, they're first of all, they're not used to losing games. We know that lately. And with them in general, that they haven't lost their first 2 games of the season since Reed's second year, 2014. Mahomes hasn't been on a team that started 0-2 since 2011, which was his sophomore season of high school. So right off the bat, we know they're not used to losing. We see what happens when they do lose a lot. Well, not a lot, but we see what happens in some of these games when they're losing or when they start off poor. Travis Kelce goes berserk on the sidelines. He's so into himself now. It's ridiculous. And he was doing it last week too when they were getting their asses kicked. He's getting right into Jawan Taylor's face. That happened a couple times with some players, but Travis Kelce was one of them again. I really want to see somebody just lay him out one day on the sideline, man. The guy's such an asshole anymore. But yeah,
aren't you glad we got the
team
better Kelce?
What's that?
Aren't you glad we had the bear Kelce and Jason?
Yeah, right. But then yeah, man. I mean, this team's already starting to show some cracks with their chemistry, and another bad game, they could fall apart on the sidelines if we have something like we had last year in the Super Bowl where the Eagles beat the shit out of them. this could get ugly. I don't think it's going to happen like that, but still, it could. Um, but man, the other way you could look at it is they bounce back because like I already said, they don't lose 2 games in a row very often, and they bounce back, and it's a revenge game for them after getting blown out in the Super Bowl, and they pull out a victory. And you did mention the receivers are banged up too. Rice is on suspension. Worthy and Royals. I don't think either of them are playing. I'm not sure. Um, Hollywood Brown was like their only target last week, and I mean he's not some great receiver. Let's be real. And
Yeah, I
going
should
up
know. I
against
should know.
yeah, right. And if he's their only receiving option, Quinyon Mitchell's going to be right on him all game. He's not going to do anything. Um, so all of a sudden there's not much of a passing attack there. They're going to have to win in a defensive battle if they want to try to win that game. Man, see, I kind of want to pick the Chiefs in this one just because that revenge factor does tend to carry over. But man, they look so bad last week and they're so banged up at receiver. I just don't think they're going to be able to pull off the win. I'm going to say this: they're going to come out hot, and after the first quarter, things start to settle down, and the Eagles start to get in their groove, and Saquon and the offensive line start to take over, and the Eagles come back in the second half and pull off the victory. But it's going to be a tight one. I'm going to say Eagles with a final score of 27-26.
Well, like I said, these two teams, I mean, they're not equal. They weren't equal. That Super Bowl was a beatdown of biblical proportions. I think maybe I was wrong in our last season shows, but I probably warned all y'all that that might happen. That might happen, and it did. And it's not like this Chiefs team is any better than they were last year. I think they're worse. They don't have a receiver. They got one receiver. One receiver. Oh, one receiver you got to worry about, and he's not even great because I Ravens fan. I watched him in Baltimore. He didn't do shit. So, like I said, and he was all banged up last year. Hollywood Brown. He didn't even play most of last year anyway because he was hurt. So you got one receiver. Pacheco runs the ball, but he's no elite running back. He's not even. He's a number 2 at least running back in this league, mostly a backup. And Travis is past his prime, and like I said, Mahomes is still Mahomes, but he's going to have to do a lot. But then again, Cooper DeJean, he still probably had nightmares for months over that pick six that he threw behind his back and Cooper caught it and ran off. This is not going to be fun for the Chiefs. They'll come out blazing early, but I hope Travis keeps his fiance home for this one because this is not going to be good for them. And I think the Eagles defense that played much better in that second half against Dallas, that was the true Eagles defense, not the one that gave up 20 points early because of the whole Jalen Carter thing. We don't want to worry about that. We don't want to think about that because that's now in the past. All that, everything is now in the past for that. He'll be in the matchup in the lineup tomorrow, and I expect it. I expect the Eagles defense to roll. I just don't see where the Chiefs are any good enough to make things difficult for and they're going to start 0-2. It's a given. I mean maybe I'm wrong, but this defense is going to give Mahomes trouble. Just again, it's going to happen again. Now, yeah, I know this game is in Arrowhead, but remember, the Eagles won at Arrowhead in a Monday night matchup in 2023 from behind, and that's when the Chiefs were still the Chiefs. Now that they're not, I can't really see them getting. It could be it obviously is a revenge game, but it's not a revenge game that's going to be served properly. I think the Eagles are just a better team, and I just don't see where the Chiefs have any chance. So I'm going to go with the Eagles again. I think Hurts is going to run for 2 touchdowns. you know, and I just don't see where the Chiefs have any chance. You know, maybe Travis Kelsey gets a touchdown here. I don't know. But the final score. Oh yeah, I heard the rumor Jason Kelsey's banned from this game. I've heard a rumor that he's been banned from this game. He can't
Oh
attend.
yeah.
That's the rumor I hear. But anyway, but I'm going to go with the Eagles and the final score 33-20.
Okay.
So that's all we have for this episode. Like I said, join us on Wednesday for another look back Eagles edition. We'll get better at it. I mean that. It was a kind of a shaky first episode, but like I said, we're new at doing this. I have given up on my college football program at least for now. What I did not do that this morning. I was actually out most of the morning doing errands. So at the end of the day, if I'm going to do the college football show, I'm going to do it with a college football analyst. I don't know who it is, somebody out there, but I'm not going to bust my ass to get an analyst on here. He or she has to come to me, not me going to them. So until that happens, there will be no more college football show or look back or whatever the hell it's called that I put together. But like I said, for Wednesday's show, we'll have our Eagles look back at 5:30 every Wednesday between the four of us, and in our regular look back at 6 or after 6, we'll have Simeon, our buddy, my new friend Simeon will be our special guest this week. I saw him this morning around town, but he will be our special guest for this week. I've been giving him pointers, and I'll be hanging with him on Tuesday, so I'll give him as many pointers as he needs for this show, and I'm sure he'll take that very very seriously. Please treat him nicely. He's a good kid. But obviously, we continue. We will. I will hopefully make an announcement on my second, on a very important second live show. Obviously, we're doing the Giant first, but then the second one, hopefully, that will be announced. Hopefully by tomorrow, I'll have a deal done by tomorrow, and I can announce it's Wednesday. So that's all we have for this episode, and I lead the music, so we'll head on out here. So thanks again, Matt, and you have a good weekend, and we will see y'all Wednesday.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, that music that you're playing isn't coming through. It didn't come through at the beginning either.
Well, I gotta fix it. I have to fix it with Mister Mister Kwame.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I'll talk to you, man.
All right.